Well, hello. Here is my lecture on Latin America. That's chapter 4. First, we look at the environmental geography or the physical geography of Latin America. Let's start with Mexico and look at how mountainous it is. There are two mountain ranges, the Sierra Madre Occidental and the Sierra Madre Oriental, the eastern Sierra Madre Mountains and the western Sierra Madre Mountains. They bound this highland, this plateau in the middle of Mexico that extends all the way down to Mexico City, which is at about 2,000 meters, a little over, so over 7,000 feet above sea level. And moving down Central America, that's pretty mountainous territory as well. But where the big thing happens is when we get to South America, which is the Andes. The Andes is the second highest mountain range in the world, second only to the Himalaya Mountains. And notice how long it is. It's about 5,000 miles long, beginning here in Venezuela and coming all the way to the very tip of South America in Chile. Its width varies, becoming very wide in the area around Bolivia. The capital of Bolivia, La Paz, is the highest city, highest big city in the world. I believe it's over 10,000 feet, the elevation of the city. Very high. The Amazon Basin, of course, that's lowland. This is where the Amazon River is, and it drains all this land around it. Notice on either side of it there are a shield. There's the Guyana Shield, which is meaning kind of highlands, and the Brazilian Shield on this other side. Also notice that there are a few tectonic plates. Here's the Caribbean plate, which covers this area. The Nazca plate, Cocos plate here, and the Pacific plate. So this area is surrounded by plate boundaries, which tend to cause earthquakes and create volcanoes. Here's the climate map. Beginning again in Mexico, we notice that northern Mexico has a dry climate, arid climate that extends all the way pretty far south. And then we move into, once we get to Mexico City, we see that it has a highland type of climate because it's up in the mountains. But then after that, we move into the AW climates. AW are tropical. They're pretty rainy, wet climates, except that they have not only a wet season, but a dry season. Okay, so Central America, we notice some AF climates. We see more of those AF climates. Here's the equator where the Amazon Basin is. The AF climate is the really rainy, year-round, no dry season type of climate. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And on either side of the AF, we notice again the AW climate. So the seasonal, rainy, but with a marked dry season. Notice the coast of Peru, it's desert. Okay, so it's something you don't really expect to see so close to the equator, but that's the way it is. And moving down towards southern coast, the southern section of South America, we notice the CFA that is similar to the one in the southeastern United States, except it doesn't get as cold in the winter because it's not as continental, meaning there's not as much continent or land in this part of South America as there is in North America at about the same latitude. Okay, and finally, if we keep going down to Chile, notice the CFB climate, which is, well, we have the CSB climate, which is our Mediterranean climate. It's very similar to what we have in California. And then farther south, we get the CFB climate, which is similar to what you would find in the Pacific Northwest or in southern Alaska, the coast of Alaska. So very cool and rainy type of climate. Because we have the mountains, the Andes Mountains in so much South America, a lot of South America, you're going to have this variation of climate because temperatures as you go up the mountain get colder. So tierra caliente means warm land, and so here it shows you the kind of agriculture that you get in the warm land, and you get the cool land, so more of a temperate climate where we get coffee and other crops, and then we get to the even cooler land where we get now more of mid-latitude crops like wheat and potatoes and some of the local animals. And finally, there are people who live way up there, mainly the indigenous Quechua people who live in the highlands, and you can't really do much agriculture more than potatoes here, but they do raise cattle, and there's some other grains that are grown, and beyond that, of course, it's too cold to do anything. This map shows you some of the environmental issues that are happening. Latin America is such a big continent that there's so many different things going on. There's only a sample of some of them. Notice this arc of deforestation. So surrounding the Amazon forest, we see an arc of area that is being logged and cut for different reasons, including agriculture and settlement. Here, this red line is the interoceanic highway that has been completed. So it crosses from the Atlantic to the Pacific. It goes from Brazil to Peru. And whenever they build these highways, there's a wave of deforestation because what it does, it creates access points for people to come in. Let's see what else. Well, I'll let you read this more on your own to see some of the other environmental issues. But as you know, there's many in Latin America. Here's the population map. A couple of things to point out. We see a lot of coastal, or if not coastal, away from the interior, closer to the coast. We see a lot of population closer to the coast. In Mexico, of course, a lot of population in the central part and around Mexico City, one of the largest cities in the world. In Central America, a lot of the population lives by the Pacific coast. One of the reasons for that is that there's a chain of volcanoes here that creates fertile conditions in the soil for agriculture. And here in South America, again, the coastal areas, with the exception in Peru, in Brazil, we have Manaus, which is a large city that rose on the banks of the Mississippi River. So that's the only large interior city in pretty much in all of South America, with the exception of Bolivia, where we have the highlands, the Andes. So a couple of megalopolis, or very large urban conglomerations, the Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo area, and around Buenos Aires, very large cities, among the biggest in the world. Here's an interesting comparison between two countries. So you can see how population in Latin America can be very diverse in terms of their age structure. Uruguay, notice this is very similar to what you find in many of the European countries, where the population it's really mature. So we see a lot of older people and not as many younger people. So in the future, we can even expect Uruguay to have a negative population growth. Population will decrease. Whereas in Guatemala, it's just the opposite. In Guatemala, we see that the bottom or the youngest age groups, that's the base of that pyramid, meaning that the population in Guatemala has a momentum that will just keep on growing because there's so many people, so many young people in their prime reproductive years. So many languages. This map does not show all the languages that you find in Latin America because there are many, many more than are shown here. Here are shown some of the main ones. So, for instance, in Mexico, we have Mixtec and Zapotec in the southern central portion, Mayan in Guatemala and Belize and the Yucatan Peninsula. That's one of the biggest indigenous groups in Latin America. Going down here, we see a lot of people who speak the Quechua languages, and these are people who live in the highlands of the Andes. So from Ecuador to Peru to Bolivia, that's where most of the Quechua people live. Then notice here in Paraguay we have Guarani, and Paraguay is actually a bilingual country where most people speak both Spanish and Guarani. The Mapuches here in southern Chile, that's a large Indian or indigenous population in Chile. And many languages of Brazilian tribes in this Amazon basin area. A little of the history here. 1650, so soon after Columbus arrived, we see that Latin America was divided into viceroyalty. So in northern part, New Spain, the southern part, the viceroyalty of Peru, some unexplored territory, and Treaty of Tordesillas of 1494, which pretty much the Pope said, well, we're going to draw a line which lies at about 46 degrees west of Greenwich. They didn't have that system back then, but that's kind of where it is. We're going to draw a line running north-south, and east of that line, that's Portugal territory. West of that line, it's going to be Spain territory. By the time of 1830, after these colonies had gained independence from Spain, this is what the picture looked like. So Mexico, very large, right? A big portion of southern and western U.S., of course, was part of Mexico. Then we have Central America, which was a single country. Gran Colombia included Venezuela and Colombia and Ecuador. Peru, Bolivia had access to the ocean, and there was a war, and Bolivia lost access and still fighting for it. And some of the other countries. So you see how things have changed since 1830. And this is the energy mix in Latin America. Notice oil has gone down, natural gas has gone up, hydroelectricity has gone up. Well, here we have some of the bigger basins. Look at the number of dams, a lot of new dams being constructed. The construction of dams is one of the environmental conflicts that we see in Latin America, because a lot of these dams are impinging on indigenous territory and taking control away from indigenous people.